Thanks very much. Can I have Councillor Arthur and then Councillor Granzik?
Thank you. And again, this is an important area because I think it touches on services which I think in a lot of ways set the tone for an area. And when these services fail, whether it's because staff are off sick or because you've highlighted not having enough vehicles, I think that's really quite significant. One of the issues that I guess around the service that you provide that infuriates me is fly tipping, and I'm not blaming you for it, of course, but I see the responsibility for that kind of falling between the centrally provided services and also the locality. So I was out in Oxgangs on Sunday and I reported one incidence of fly tipping. I was out with the housing officer yesterday, I picked up 3, and on my way to work this morning through Oxgangs, I picked up another 2. So that's kind of reactive, where I contact the council comes along and picks those things up, and that's good. So I think what the locality team did around a month or so ago was they actually provided a sort of amnesty for people who had unwanted bulk items which could be taken away. It was really successful. Quite a lot of things came forward. Some items didn't make it to the bin because they were intercepted by other people and they were quite happy to take away, I think bikes in particular. There seemed to be a swapping market going on bikes, so that was quite positive actually. But I do wonder, in the longer term, is charging people for uplift the right way to deal with bulk item uplift? Is charging people the right thing to do, particularly in the areas which we've recognised through our locality development plans as being deprived and needing more support? I heard recently that the Council's thinking about giving students a free uplift service towards the end of term times. So I wondered why we couldn't also give people living in the more deprived areas indicated in the locality improvement plans the same kind of service to help try and tackle proactively that fly tipping problem.
I suppose certainly with students what we tend to do is try and kind of have that amnesty towards the end of term. So, I know that we've done quite a lot of work with Mike's team kind of highlighting issues around fly tipping and dumping. Particularly in sort of Sight Hill Gorgie area where you've got a lot of communal bins. Obviously some people will phone up and book a special uplift, others will just dump the item next to the communal bin. I genuinely believe that it's possibly around them more not knowing how to go about disposing of the bulky item than kind of willfully dumping of it. But yeah, I think through our Edinburgh campaign, a lot of it is around kind of behaviour change and getting people to do the right thing. And we've certainly talked about kind of amnesty approaches before in certain areas. And I think there may well be something coming up or something that was recently done in a particular area around the southwest where we dropped off some cages and enabled people to kind of bring out those sort of surplus items.
Yeah, so that's what I was referring to, and that was actually really successful. But the issue is that, if people don't have access to a vehicle, if they've got a sofa or whatever that they no longer need, it's actually difficult for them to move it to that location. Whereas if the council was to offer the same kind of service that we were talking about offering students to actual Edinburgh residents, people who live here and pay council tax, etc., I think that perhaps might be a way that could help solve this problem, because it is a really significant problem, I think. And I think, again, it affects the tone of our developments.
Obviously, with the special uplift service we have currently, it's very much set up around the person presenting the item at the curbside. Obviously, there's any number of properties whereby if you buy a new sofa or a new mattress, it's highly unlikely that the day that you're getting your new product is the day that your special uplift might be booked. So we do kind of recognise that in some property types there is very little available storage space. What I would like to do with the special uplift service is that Transport and Environment Committee, we did get approval to look at a pilot project with sort of third sector, who obviously within Edinburgh there's a lot of other organisations that provide a very similar service. what they tend to do is go into the kind of resident's house and uplift it, rather than it being relied upon to be presented at the curbside. I think equally as well, there might be opportunities to work with some of those kind of logistics or delivery companies, so that if they're delivering something into a property, then potentially on behalf, they take the old item out of the property. I think that's quite a long-term aim, but it's certainly something that we're quite keen to explore.
I'm just watching the clock here, so if you could make it quick.
So changing subject completely to litter bins. So one of the things that strikes me is that there is some litter bins in my ward which are just always full up, and I quite frequently report them. And, you know, sometimes we ask for extra collections, but it just does still seem that the same litter bins always fill up. How does the council deal with that? If they go to a bin and it's always full, is there a mechanism in place for the operators then to request, you know, a bigger bin perhaps, or a more frequent servicing of that bin? Because just now that doesn't really seem to be happening. It's great that people are using the bin, of course, but when they get there and it's full, that people then tend to discard items around the bin, which again just has a negative impact.
Yeah, I mean, effectively with that, my expectation would be that the driver crew leader of that crew, if they're constantly coming across an overflowing litter bin, then they would feed that back, and we can look at changing schedules to accommodate that. We have got some additional ERDF funding, which is around the technology element. So we've obviously used litter bin sensors to some good effect in the city centre. My personal view would be that the next deployment of sensors needs to be out in some of the more kind of rural type areas, maybe where litter bins that were not going by 3 or 4 times a day, like we would be on Princes Street or East Market Street, so that we can then gather the information and adjust those schedules accordingly. And obviously that sensor technology indicates to us on a daily basis which bins are in desperate need of servicing effectively.
Thanks very much. Councillor Gradzik.